Good morning, everyone. Good day to you. Today, we're going to continue our discussion of enterprise risk management. We're now in session two, enterprise ERM workshop for CPAs. Now, let's have a brief recollection of what we did last time. In the previous section, we introduced ERM or enterprise risk management. I'll call it ERM. We introduced these frameworks and we learned some basic quantitative risk estimation like single SLEs no, and ALEs. Today, we're going to continue that discussion. We will deepen that analysis by expanding or extending our discussion to a method that's used by many finance and accountants, and that's the Monte Carlo simulation. We will also do portfolio optimization of controls and the try to connect between risk management and strategic decision making. The goal is to move from a simple risk identification towards evidence-based evidence-based risk decisions that boards and audit committees can rely on. So these are our learning objectives for today. You notice that at the end of the session, we'll be able to appreciate what risk appetite and risk tolerance, the meaning of them. We will also use scenario analysis and sensitivity analysis as we assess risk. And most important of all, we're going to run and interpret MC simulations. In addition to this, we're going to look at the concept of value at risk and expected shortfall. Okay, we're going to also look at evaluating control investments economically, and the last part is the communication and governance aspect of ERM. These objectives focus on decision useful risk information. Now, risk management is not just about identifying risk. It is about helping management to make better decisions under uncertainty. So, just to recap, last time we looked at these key concepts. We looked at the risk life cycle, and we discussed ISO 3100 and COSO frameworks. We looked at the concept of asset value, exposure factors, and annualized rate of occurrence, ARO. Then we learned about the formula for SLE, which is just your asset value times your asset exposure factor, and your ALE, which is your SLE multiplied by your ARO. Now, before we continue, let's have a brief exercise, and I'll post some questions about the lessons that we learned last time. This is also in practice for your. I was told that you'll have a short quiz. Okay, so just by way of review, let's have this question. Okay, some multiple choice question. Now, which best describes ERM? I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. And the answer is, it's letter B. So ERM is all about coordinating activities in order to manage risk. Okay, so the next question is, what's the meaning of asset value? What does it represent? Okay, and the answer is B also. So asset value represents the financial value that's exposed to risk. So it's not the asset per se, but it's the value of the asset that is exposed to risk. Next question. How about exposure factor? What does that represent? Okay, the answer is Letter B also. The exposure factor, if you recall, it's the percentage of loss if an event, if a certain event occurs. That's the percentage of loss. That's what you call your exposure factor. And then how about the formula for, what's the formula for SLE? Okay, so this is very easy. SLE is simply your asset value times your exposure factor. And then let's have another question. Question number 5. What does ALE represent? Okay, ALE stands for your expected annual loss. This is just a brief review of what we have discussed last time. How about the arrow, annualized rate of occurrence? What does that represent? The arrow, what does that measure? Annualized rate of occurrence. So it measures the frequency of occurrence. Okay, annualized rate of occurrence. Okay, let's go to the next question. How about a risk register? What is it used for? Okay, so it's used for recording and monitoring risks. Okay, I have a couple of questions more. Which stage of the risk process implements controls? So this is quite easy. This is a giveaway question. Which stage of the risk process? Is it identification, assessment, or treating, or communicating? And we know that the answer is the treat process. Okay, and 2 more questions here. Oops, sorry. Oh. Okay, anyway, the COSO ERM, what does it link? It links risk management to strategy and performance. And then last question here. Okay, the net benefit rule evaluates what? What does it evaluate? And the answer is, it evaluates whether the control benefits exceed costs. So that's how we define the net benefit. It's like comparing it's just a cost and benefit analysis. We compare the benefits that we derive from this particular intervention, and then we compare it with the risk, with the cost, to arrive at the net benefit. Okay, so this is actually the beginning of session 2. Okay, let's start first with let me ask you this question. Suppose this company has assets worth $10 million, and this asset is exposed to cyber risk. Now, the assumptions are your EF is 20% to 60%. It means that it's possible that this asset, $10 million, can be exposed to cyber risk. The probability of that happening is 20% to 60%. So it ranges from a low 20% to a high 60%. And the company estimates that the annual rate of occurrence ranges from 5% to 25%. Okay, 5% means it happens only around 5% of the time per year. 25% means 1/4 of the time it might happen. So the question is, okay, the question is, what do you think would be the possible annual loss? So is it 100,000 up to 500,000? 500,000 up to 101 million? Is it 1 million up to 3 million? Or is it impossible to estimate? So what do you think? Now, in session 1, we learned how to estimate expected loss using SLE and ALE. However, the problem with that is yung real world risk is uncertain. Okay, we have no certainty that the EF is like this. Okay, so the exposure factor can vary, and thus the rate of occurrence can vary. So instead of estimating a single number, which is what we did last time, there has to be a way to analyze thousands of possible scenarios. Okay? So ito na yung transition natin, no? Dati kasi single figure estimate tayo. Now this is where Monte Carlo simulation becomes useful. And this creates a very natural entry into the Monte Carlo session. So if you take a look at this risk quantification ladder, so these are the steps in quantifying risk. Number one, okay, is of course identify the quality of the risk. Is it high risk, medium risk, or low? Okay, we assess that, and then we assess also the SLE and the ALE. Okay, we convert the risk to expected financial loss. So is it a single loss expectation or an annualized loss? Okay, single loss is one figure. Annualized is getting the average for the whole year. Okay, converting the single to an annualized figure. And then we come up with scenario analysis. What could happen? Okay, best case scenario, worst case scenario, and base case scenario. So after all of this, we can perform the Monte Carlo simulation. The good thing about the Monte Carlo simulation is that we can simulate thousands and thousands of outcomes. Unlike last session, where we had only one set of outcome for either SLE or ALE. Now, in addition to Monte Carlo simulation, okay, where we can get the several outcomes and then get the average of that, we can also compute for another risk metric called the value at risk, okay, which is the loss at the chosen confidence level. Usually this is 95%. Okay, and lastly, okay, there are limitations as far as the Monte Carlo average metric is concerned, and also the value at risk. Therefore, we can add another metric, which is your conditional value at risk or your expected shortfall, which measures the average loss in extreme scenarios. Okay, so before we go deeper into MC or Monte Carlo simulation, it's very useful to understand how this ladder evolves, no? How risk analysis evolves from simple approaches to more sophisticated quantitative techniques. At the most basic level, yung una dyan, we just start with qualitative risk identification, di ba? Sabi natin kanina, risks are categorized as high, medium, or low. And then we can have quantification already using SLE and ALE, where we convert the risk into an estimated expected loss. From there, we can use scenario analysis. As I mentioned a while ago, we can identify the best case, then the worst case, and the base case also. Now, MC, Monte Carlo simulation, can extend this idea by generating thousands of possible outcomes, which we're going to see in a while, allowing us to model uncertainty more realistically. So Monte Carlo simulation is a lot more realistic than the single metric ALE and SLE. Okay, so once we have this distribution of outcomes, we can now calculate other metrics like value at risk, okay, Value at risk estimates the potential losses at a given confidence level. And then finally, your expected shortfall. Kasi may limitation ang value at risk. It just pinpoints one value. The expected shortfall also pinpoints one value, but it's the average of those values that are greater than your value at risk. So expected shortfall focuses on the extreme tail of the distribution, and it helps organizations understand severe but plausible losses. Ever heard of the the black swan theory? Okay, so that's related to the black swan theory. So this ladder represents the evolution from qualitative judgment to data-driven risk decision making. So let's start first with the concept of risk appetite versus risk tolerance. Okay, you must very well know that risk appetite is simply the amount of risk the organization is willing to accept. So it defines the level of risk that management and the board are willing to accept in the pursuit of their objectives. On the other hand, risk tolerance represents the acceptable variation around these objectives. For CPAs, these concepts influence financial provisioning, capital allocation, and control design. Okay, for example, if a company has a target profit of 100 and their tolerance could be plus or minus 5 million. Okay, so for example, the next thing to do is the next step is your scenario analysis. Okay, scenario analysis helps us to think about different possible futures. It allows management to understand how risk exposures may change under different conditions. So for example, this is your exposure factor, okay? And your arrow is here. So you can specify what's the best case, what's the base case, and the worst case scenario. This is very important as far as scenario planning is concerned. So another analysis is sensitivity analysis. So sensitivity analysis asks which variable drives the risk most. It helps identify the main drivers of risks. Okay, if the exposure factor, for example, if exposure factor drives most of the risk, then we should invest in controls that reduce impact severity. So it depends. Is the risk driven by EF, or is the risk driven by your ARO? Okay. If it's ARO, if it's a driver of risk, then the company should focus on preventive controls. Okay, so it's like different strokes for different folks. Okay, we have to test where the risk is being driven by, which drives the risk. Okay, so is it EF, is it ARO, or is it the asset value? All right, so going to the Monte Carlo simulation, okay, these are the steps that we will be using for the Monte Carlo simulation. Okay, the good thing about MC or Monte Carlo simulation is that it allows us to simulate many possible future scenarios. Okay, and the basic steps are we define the uncertain variables and then assign probability distributions. From that, we generate random samples and calculate the outcomes and repeat this thousands of times. Okay, so you may repeat this 5,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times, even 1,000,000 times. Depends on the power of your computer, but usually it's 5,000 to 10,000 times. And we'll show that in a while. So why? Why Monte Carlo simulation? Okay, as we said a while ago, yung traditional risk calculation uses only single estimates. Okay, but we know that single estimates are not a good way to measure risk. Okay, because of uncertainty. Okay, for example, exposure factor. It's not a good idea just to have one single value for your exposure factor, like 10%, 15%. Because in reality, in the real world, we can't really know uh, with precision what a company's asset value, uh, what exposure factor a company's asset value is exposed to. So that's why it's better to come up with a let's say best case scenario, base, and the worst case scenario. So you may have several values, or in that case, three values. Okay, so EF might range from 20% to 60%. So with that range, it can be 21%, 22%, okay, 23%, etc. Our arrow might also range from, let's say, yung occurrence niya, 5% to 25%. Okay, so the good thing about this is we can use all these ranges of different values in the Monte Carlo simulation, because Monte Carlo simulation models uncertainty. Okay, so how does it work? As I said a while ago, instead of estimating only one possible loss value, the MC, Monte Carlo simulation, will generate thousands of possible outcomes. Okay, tens of thousands if you want. And these outcomes form a probability distribution. So this allows management to understand both the expected loss and extreme scenarios. So we are able to form a distribution of losses. And from there, the company might be able to come up with decisions based on this data. Okay. So this is just a diagram of how Monte Carlo works. Okay. So this is your expected annual loss. And you notice you don't have one. This is generated by coming up with a Monte Carlo simulation. Okay, so if we have this Monte Carlo simulation, we're able to compute for the expected loss, annualized expected loss. We're also able to compute for the value at risk, 95th percentile. And then the expected shortfall, which is the tail risk, which we're going to discuss in a while. Okay. So this is just a simple example. We're going to have this, we're going to discuss this. So assume that the asset value is 10 million. We define the exposure factor to be 20 to 60%. And then the rate, average rate of occurrence is 5% to 25%. We can simulate 5,000 different outcomes for this. Okay, not only 5,000, even more if you want. So what happens? With that, we're able to get 5,000 different outcomes, and then we can get the average of the annualized loss. Okay, for example, the annualized loss is 620, and then the 95th percentile is 1,400,000 based on the computation. Okay, so the mean there represents the expected annual loss. The 95th on the other hand, that's your VAR, represents losses in a severe year. Okay, so we can say that on the average, the loss could be 620,000. In a bad case, it can be 1.4 million. So the good thing about Monte Carlo simulation is that it will generate the distribution of possible outcomes. And you're able to generate risk metrics like value at risk, an expected shortfall, okay? And it summarizes the most important characteristics of that distribution. Okay, so I kept on mentioning value at risk. So what is it really? Okay, once we're able to generate thousands of possible outcomes using Monte Carlo simulation, we can now compute the summary metrics, such as the VAR and the ES, expected shortfall. These measures yung VAR at yung expected shortfall will be able to help management understand the potential severity of the losses. Okay, so for example, itong VAR na to, no? Let's suppose that VAR was computed, 95% VAR, okay, is equal to 1.5 million. And what's the interpretation of this? It means that there is a 95% probability that losses will not exceed 1.5 million in a given period. Okay? Let me repeat that. If the VAR, 95% VAR is equal to 1.5 million, it means that you have a 95% probability that losses will not be more than 1.5 million. So it's like the maximum loss. Okay? 95% confidence that yung maximum loss natin will be 1.5 million. But of course, there's that 5% probability that losses can exceed 1.5 million. Okay? So VAR is really widely used in financial institutions to measure portfolio risk. So very important for portfolio management, yung concept ng VAR. Okay, then we have the last one, which is your expected shortfall. This is your CVAR, conditional VAR. Okay, while VAR focuses on that 95% probability that the loss will not be more than that, si VAR naman, si conditional VAR, the advantage of conditional VAR is that it focuses on the tails, yung mga values beyond that VAR, and then it gets the average of that. Okay, so let's say the VAR is 95% VAR is 1.5 million. Okay, so 5% of the values, okay, the tails, which is more than 1.5, tell us that you still have 5% possibility that losses will occur more than 1.5 million. Because as we said, the 95% VAR is 1.5 million. So what we do in order to compute for the expected shortfall or CVAR is to get the average of this 5% data. Okay? So let's suppose if so yung expected shortfall, okay, what it captures is the tail risk. If you have a distribution, di ba yung tail yung nasa upper, nasa right, no? These are extreme outcomes that VAR alone may miss. Kasi baka hindi ma-measure ni VAR yan eh. Kasi si VAR, nag-focus lang dun sa 95% if you're using 95% VAR. So expected shortfall or ES focuses on the extreme tail of the loss distribution. Okay, so if you imagine a distribution, let's go back to the one a while ago here. Here, no? So you'll suppose this is your distribution using Monte Carlo simulation. You can get the average of that. So the average could most probably be here. And then the VAR most probably will be here. Okay. Which means 95% to, no? And 5% na lang natitira dito. And the expected shortfall is getting the average of this. Okay. the tail risk. And that's your expected shortfall, tail risk, or conditional value at risk. Okay, so as I stated here, 95% VAR is 1.5. The expected shortfall might be, let's say, 2.1. Why is it higher than VAR? Because the values beyond VAR are of course higher than 1.5 million. Okay, so the average of that will be, of course, higher than the VAR. And this represents the average loss during the worst of scenarios. Okay, so expected shortfall focuses on the extreme tail, as I mentioned a while ago, of the loss distribution. It measures the average loss during the worst scenarios. Okay, as I mentioned a while ago, something about the black swan. No? And these are very extreme events. No? And this was popularized by, maybe you've heard of that, no? By Nassim Taleb. These are rare and unexpected events with very large impacts. Okay, so imagine if the company loses dun sa expected shortfall, di ba? So talagang malaking impact nun. Now, of course, expected shortfalls cannot predict black swans, no? But it will help organizations understand the severity, the impact of extreme outcomes beyond the value at risk. Okay, it shows us that the company could be exposed to something very severe if the losses occur within the range of the expected shortfall. Okay, it's like parang mga black swan, ano? All right. So now we talked about measuring risk. Okay, we talked about scenario analysis, sensitivity analysis. We talked about Monte Carlo simulation. We talked about uh, value at risk, and we also discussed expected shortfall or conditional VAR. Now, if they are very, let's say, powerful models, why is it that they still fail? Why do risk models still fail? And we have several examples that we can see in actual business environment or finance environment. Okay, common risk can be, of course, we're just doing some assumptions about the distributions. Okay, for example, a while ago, we estimated the expected the EF to be between how much was that? 20% to 60%. Okay, so we could be wrong about that. So that means that's incorrect assumptions. Okay, and also we ignore correlations between risks. Okay, what do we mean by that? What do you mean by ignoring correlations between risk? So we know that there are many types of risk: market risk, okay, operational risk, counterparty risk. Sometimes these risks are correlated. And what do we mean by that? That the losses can be affected by other risks, not necessarily the types of risk that we're looking at. Okay, so that's why uh, risk models can fail because of unseen correlations between some factors. Okay, and then also we might tend to underestimate extreme events, just like what we mentioned a while ago, yung tail risk natin. And sometimes over-reliance on historical data. And of course, yung human and governance failure. We cannot discount that. Okay? If we think that risk models cannot fail, we are 100% mistaken. Models are just tools, and they do not guarantee anything. Okay, so let's take note of that. No? And let's discuss some real world examples about the failure of risk, no? Of risk models. Okay, you must have heard of the long-term capital, okay, management. Its collapse in 1998, and of course the global financial crisis of 2008 and the COVID supply. Okay, although we know that there are quantitative models such as in Monte Carlo, no? Kasi mako-compute natin yung value at risk, expected shortfall, and they're very powerful tools. However, it's important to remember that models they're just representations or even simplifications of reality. Hindi naman talaga sila yung reality. They're just representations or let's say even oversimplifications of reality. Maraming financial crises like these ones that I'm mentioning to you. Bakit sila nag-occur? No? They occurred not because the models were useless, but because certain assumptions were incorrect. No? And then also maybe yung limitations ng models in-ignore. Case in point, itong LTCM. Classic case to eh. Yung collapse noong 1998. Okay? And ang ginagamit nila mga sophisticated, I think yung mga ano dito, yung mga CEOs, CFOs, mga ano sila, mga physicists from Stanford. So they could really generate very sophisticated models. Okay? Pero ano nangyari? Ano nangyari? Well, they failed, no? When market correlations change. Nagbago kasi yung market. Okay? So, yung market related to the other risks the company was facing. So with that, uh, hindi na taken into account yun. It was not taken into account. So very interesting. I suggest that if you haven't read about this case, it would be good for you to read about the long-term capital management case. Many things that we can learn from this case. And of course, you have the 2008 financial crisis. Okay, ito naman na sa US, no, na underestimate nila yung possibility ng nationwide housing collapse, di ba? Yung mga MBAs, yung mga MBS, mortgage backed securities, doon nagsimula yan eh. No? And of course, yung COVID-19 pandemic. Yung maraming mga organizations na discover nila that yung mga risk models nila had not accounted for disruption ng global supply chain. Okay? So anong sinasabi nito? What does this tell us? Ang lesson dito is that models should support decision making, but they should never replace judgment and governance. Okay, nakakatulong yung models for decision making. Pero yung judgment and governance, iba yun. No? It's a totally different level. Okay. All right. So here, ito pinakita ko lang dito, no? Okay. Ito yung mean. Okay, you can see there that you have this distribution generated from Monte Carlo simulation. Okay, this is a histogram of the distribution of your simulated losses. So ito yung mga losses, possible losses natin. And this is the mean expected value of your loss. And then you have this, your VAR. Ito yung VAR natin, 95% VAR. Okay, that's the value that we can say that we are 95% confident that the loss will not exceed that amount. And on the other hand, it's the expected shortfall. Of course, expected shortfall will be higher than your VAR. Okay, it just averages the values that are greater than your VAR. Okay, so si VAR, as we said, tells us the threshold for a bad year. AKA only about 5% of the outcomes exceed the VAR. Pero VAR doesn't tell us how bad things are beyond that point. Diba? Hindi naman sinasabi ni VAR kung how bad are the things beyond the 95% VAR. So enter si shortfall, expected shortfall, which averages this. Si expected shortfall ina-average to, no? Yan. Okay, we're going to take a look at this in Excel, no? Later. Okay, so for now, let's have a maybe 15-minute break for you to be able to take a look at the slides again, and we will come back kasi magmo-Monte Carlo simulation na tayo. Yun ang medyo mahaba-haba, yun ang titingnan talaga natin. We'll come back after 15 minutes to continue with our discussion.